Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm Nick Daschel and I cover Oregon State football for the Oregonian and OregonLive. Well, this is it. We're done. The 2024 season's finished. It ended Friday with when the Beavers lost at Boise State 34-18 at Albertson Stadium. OSU came up one game short of bowl eligibility, assuring a long off season of soul-searching roster improvement and probably some player development into as well. Joining me as always is former Oregon State defensive end Isaac Hodgins. Isaac, I usually prepare a little agenda, but it's kind of loose. But I figured, God, people come up to me all the time and tell me they love them some Isaac Hodgins. I mean, they love hearing your opinions because you're kind of
Really?
unvarnished and you say what you think instead of trying to be PC, and so they love that stuff. And I feel like they learn something,
Yeah.
especially when you start nerding out on the defensive stuff. They love hearing that stuff. So I think I'm going to start today with what's on your mind about Oregon State football?
I think honestly for me, I've been in these guys' position before. I'm hurting for those seniors obviously because I've been in that position where you come one game short of bowl eligibility. It reminds me of the 2019 season, and so I feel for those guys first and foremost. But honestly, I feel a lot of hopefulness for this program going forward, just because of. I mean, you just look across the board how many young guys they had playing throughout the season who were starting and, middle linebacker, corner, getting good snaps at running back, quarterback, wide receiver. Like, you got a lot of young guys getting a lot of experience that can never hurt you as a future in the program. Now, it definitely can hurt you present day, which we saw it did. But as a program going forward, that's always great to have.
Yeah.
These young guys who get experience very early on, and so it's something they're gonna need.
The only difference between what you're talking about is, 20 years ago that would have been great. We just never know who's going to stick around and who's gonna bolt for the transfer portal, and
Right.
we can kind of get to that later. But those are always some things. You see a young guy and you go, God, he's going to be great in a couple of years. Just hope he's not wearing silver and blue or green and yellow or something else. You kind of want to see him develop as in an Oregon State uniform, but
Yeah, and that's kind of that's the hard part. But I think guys like Skylar Thomas, Jaden Robinson, Joshua Gray. I hope some of these guys' leadership kind of wore off on everyone else, because these are guys who had plentiful of opportunity to leave and to go to a different program and be contributors or starters or whatever it may be. So I just hope that Coach Bray and this coaching staff, when they do hit the recruiting, the recruiting trail, they're looking for those guys who are like, hey, I want to develop. I want to be with this team because I know, hey, this is the program I want to be with, and this is a school I want to go to, regardless of what coach is there or anything else like that. Which is tough to find now.
Well, that was a point that I made. I don't think it's impossible. When I asked Trent a question, it was probably a week or two ago about the transfer portal and what's the sales, what's the pitch to the guys on your roster. And will one of the pitches be, look what happened to all these guys that left last year. Maybe they got some money, but most of them have not done what they did at Oregon State. I mean, you look at a Silas Bolden, you look at the two guys who went to Florida State, you look even Easton and Akili Arnold. I mean, I thought they were, I don't know. And, Damian Martinez didn't have as good. I mean, he's in a good situation, but I don't know that any of them had the production they had at Oregon State. And, Trent's point was, you came here for a reason. You can't, you came here because you were a fit for our program, and maybe you're not a fit at other places. And, we're going to put you in the best spot possible. if you
Right.
want to get to the next level to show off what you can do. And so I don't know if that, I don't know whether that will resonate or
Yeah.
not with some players, but
And I know what else resonates as a young high school player is what resonates is you show up to Corvallis, there's nothing else to do other than to play football, go to school, and then maybe party a little bit, Vegas and whatnot. But that's the main sentiment that people come to Oregon State. They're like, hey, this is a place where I can focus on football. There's not a lot of outside distractions, and I can master my craft in order to get to the next level. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal of playing college football. You want to get
yeah,
to the next level and get to the NFL, right? And I will say, I'll add this note: out of most people who I talked to who left Oregon State, most people who I talked to, there's this sentiment of like, man, we had it good at Oregon State. Like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Um, whether that be the culture of the football team or just like the feel of the school and the city, it
yeah,
just isn't like Oregon State. Oregon State has something special that keeps guys like Steven Jackson coming back all these years, still returning back to this place and watching games and pouring back into the program and the team. So there's definitely something special about Oregon State. I mean, even guys who go on to the NFL, they talk about like, man, it's just not like how it was, back when it was the summer of 2022 with the Beavs and we were grinding and competing. Like Oregon State's a special place. So I hope
yeah.
that message
Well,
gets
I
to
mean, I look
this
at a guy
this
like
next
Silas
generation of college
Bolden,
football
and
players.
I don't know what kind of money he got at Texas. I mean, maybe it was $500,000. I don't know, and that's good money. And hey, everybody's got to do what they got to do for their family. But if you just went there because you thought that was going to be a
Right.
better spot for you to get to the NFL, I mean, it just didn't happen. He's got 18 catches for, I don't know, not much. And I mean, you put him in Oregon State's offense this year. I mean, he might have. I mean, I'm pretty sure he would have
Yeah.
blown up. He would have had a huge year at Oregon State. They would have put him in a lot of spots.
Yeah, and I think at the wide receiver position, some of that hard decision for them really comes down to like, hey, who's going to be my quarterback? Who's going to be the guy who's throwing to me, like who I can build confidence with, and I can have the best shot at having that blow up season, right? And I think that's where Coach Bray and the rest of the coaching staff's focus should be on is like, who's going to be our quarterback next year? Who's the guy
Yeah,
we could go get to bring into this program to give confidence to other people to commit to staying here and playing here? Because there's definitely, I mean, we showed some things offensively that you can be in a pro style offense and do well at the next level. Um,
yeah.
and guys have
I
shown
mean, guys like
doing that
Silas and
at
Damian
Oregon State.
Martinez are probably going to be in this college football playoff. So there's that, and maybe that
Right.
was a goal. I don't know.
Yeah, and they're younger in their careers too. I think
No, I
Silas
think
probably
he's
has
down
two
to
more
it
years
was
or
either this year or
something of the
maybe next.
sort.
I don't know. I think he was a junior. He's got one more year, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track. All these when you're old like me and
Yeah,
you're around for
yeah,
6 years, it's hard to keep track of how many years people have. You're like, dang, you only
yeah.
got 2 more years. I got like
Well,
five
let's.
left. How is this possible?
I want to kind of go with the two big topics today, and one of them is the game itself. We'll start with that. The game at Boise, where I felt like it came down to a couple situations in the first half that really kind of turned the game. I felt like the first one
Yeah,
was the
I
first
agree.
drive of the game where Boise State scored a touchdown. Oregon State had some chances to
Yeah,
get them off the field. They couldn't. They got a. I thought Boise got a real favorable spot on the 4th and 1 play. Uh, I've seen this on social media
yeah,
about they were showing the guy was putting the chain and where that didn't mean it. It was the spot. The spot I felt like
yeah. It was the spot. That was a super favorable spot, and I think part of it had to do with
yeah,
the guy who was carrying the ball. I think the refs are kind of like, oh, he must have got the first down. You just see a big scrum, and it just seemed like they were spotting the ball, and then they
Yeah.
kept drifting
Well,
this way. I'm like, what the
Trent
heck is
did
going
say at
on? Like,
halftime, and then he
he
said
was
after
nowhere,
the game
in my
both
opinion.
times that he saw the referee crew and he went, "It's going to be one of those days." And he what? Yeah, he said that. He
Is
said
that
the
you
Pac
said? Who
12.
said that? Coach Bray?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
I
you
mean, you
kind of
just
get a
kind
feel
of
for
know what's going. But I felt
some of
like
these
that
umpires.
drive there. If you stop Boise State, get them off the field. I'm not saying the game they're going to win the game, but it certainly would have given Oregon State some momentum instead of giving up a touchdown, then starting at the 5-yard
Yeah.
line with your first drive.
Well, you look at all the games that we did win this year was, hey, we're getting stops on those first drives when the defense is out there and kind of killing their offense's momentum. And then what you do is you kind of build your own team's confidence of like, hey, we just got, a Heisman winner off the field. Um, and so I agree though. I thought that first drive was instrumental, and then the drive, I don't know if it was the first or second drive for our offense where there was the illegal motion, and then
Well, both
there was
the
the
first two
holding,
drives were
and
just
that was
littered
just
with
like,
penalties.
wow, I
But
wanted to rip.
I didn't even think those were the other one that was the big one to me was okay. Oregon State, Hank runs at 83 for a touchdown, cuts the lead to 14-7. There's about a minute 40 left before halftime. That's where your defense has got to come out, make a stand, and say, no, you're not going to score for halftime, knowing you're getting the ball to start the second half. Instead, Boise just goes right down the field and scores right before
Right.
halftime and makes it 21-7. I felt like the ball game wasn't over then, but it just felt like this isn't going to be Oregon State's day.
Yeah. 14-7 is a lot different than 21-7, you're right. But I come back to that second drive with the holding and the illegal motion. Like, I was just, like, that, because that drive was just the momentum. It was just so good, and then those momentum killers came in, and just, in my opinion, as a fan watching it, just
Well, they got a false start on the first play.
Here we go
and
again.
That stadium, to be fair, is pretty loud. It's small. It's small, but it's loud, and I'm sure some of that stuff rattled them a little bit. They just were. It took a little while to adjust to the crowd noise and everything there, but even at
it doesn't help.
But then it felt like,
drive on
okay,
your own
it's
10-yard line
21-7.
either, so.
Okay, you got to come out of the locker room and make a statement. Instead, 3 and out, start the second half. And it just felt like it's not going to go the Beavers' way today.
Yeah. And it was just a little bit too late, too little too late. I thought Darius Clemens had kind of a breakout game. And, I'm hoping I don't know what his eligibility is like, but I'm hoping he can kind of stick with the program and watch these get built back up, because he definitely showed himself and proved himself to be a weapon.
I think he's got. I think he's got 2 years. I have to go back and look, because you always have to look and see when did he start. Where's the COVID year and all that. But I know he's got at least one, and I think he might have 2 years left, but I'm not positive. But yeah, that game was really. I mean, it was like, God, where was that 6 games ago or something like that? Not the last game of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he was probably dealing with some injuries or something, and then just could never get that momentum going. And finally, man, he blew up this game. It was awesome. I mean, between him and Hank, and it was just like, man, if we could just put a little bit more together a little bit sooner, if we would have had some of those bigger plays earlier on. I think the commentators were saying something along the lines of like, this is a team, like, most of our wins came from either being ahead or we're right there neck and neck.
Genty went he had 37 carries for 226. I didn't feel like Oregon State did a bad job on him. I thought outside of a couple plays, I thought they did an okay job on him for the most part.
Yeah.
I know.
Which is wild to say, because it's like 226. You're like, that's not a very good job. But then you're like, this is who we're talking about. I think they did a good job in the sense that they limited the explosive runs to a degree. Obviously there were still some 15+ yard runs that were sprinkled in there. but they limited like this not miraculous, but like this amazing performance by Genty. Um, those highlight clip type moments, there's a few in there, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like what we
Well,
saw all
I'm
season leading up to this game. So, um, yeah, part of it was that we loaded and stacked the box. So it's like you got to stop the run. And we were dedicated to stopping the run to a certain degree, but
yeah, I'm just
then we
looking
got
here at
hurt
the
a little bit
stats
in the
here.
passing game.
The
For
big
sure.
big rushing plays. He had a 16, 11, a 12, a 13, a 60, a 10, and a 26. So, I mean, they were,
Yeah, I think
yeah, it was in
that
it was
61
in
came
the
towards the end of the game,
late
didn't it?
third quarter. Um, and he had a 26 yarder
Yeah,
late in the fourth quarter. So I guess, he had 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah.
5, 7 runs of 10 plus yards. So I don't know. That's
To be fair to him, he did get one called
yeah,
back,
I
which was a
mean,
pretty
there's no
amazing
question he's a
run,
good back,
but
but I mean, so
doesn't count.
70, 96, one. So he had roughly 150 yards on 7 plays, and then he had 100, and then he had like 75 yards on the other 30. So I mean, I felt like for the most part, Oregon State just
Yeah,
there he just had a few too many, explosive plays. But um, I didn't feel like that was what beat them. I
yeah,
felt like what beat them was the quarterback, Maddox Madsen. It just seemed like whenever he needed to make a play with his legs or arms, he did it, and that they could give
yeah,
Genty all they want, all he got. I think they had a shot to beat him if Madsen had made a bunch of plays, which he did.
yeah. And I mean, you could tell by the way we were playing defense, we were sold out on, trying to stop the run to the best of our ability. Obviously, it didn't play out the way we wanted to, but that kind of hurt us in the passing game where, Madsen kind of just tore us apart. It just looked like we were playing kind of soft coverage, and there's just so much space
Yeah,
between the wide receiver and the corners and the DBs, and it just looked like Madsen was kind of just finding these open guys and hitting them, and then just, I mean, letting
yeah,
them do the work with their legs type of deal. So um, that was kind of a bummer to see that, like, hey, if we're gonna stack the box, we can't be
right.
giving up these big explosive pass plays either. Um, so that was, I mean, I think
I
that's
will say
ultimately
after
what kind
watching
of
Boise
was
State
the difference in
play,
the game.
if they run into a team that can throw the ball, they're not winning. I don't think they can. I don't think they can slow down a good passing attack.
Right.
They will need Genty to just go crazy to be a team that can throw it.
Yeah, it's gonna
I
have to
thought
be a
Oregon State
shootout for
could have.
sure.
It just seemed like Oregon State had guys open all day long, but um,
Yeah, and to be honest, I honestly don't think their offensive line will be able to withstand some of these bigger opponents. Just because I mean, I watched multiple plays where Samisi was walking back offensive lineman into the quarterback's lap, and somehow the quarterback still does this circus throw and catch, and it's a big gain, but that I think their
yeah.
offensive line is definitely going to
Well,
be a
for and
problem
for
for them in the playoffs for sure. I mean, that's the biggest difference between good teams and great teams in college football is the front seven of the defense and then the offensive lines. That's the biggest jump from college to NFL is the defense alignment. That's the biggest jump. So when you start playing these first round draft pick defensive linemen
well, I
in
mean,
the playoffs,
it's long
things
been
change
known
real
that the
quick.
hardest position to recruit is defensive line because there's just not that many good ones, and I mean, except you, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Right. No, I mean defensive line it's honestly it's kind of flipped in the NFL is offensive line is the hard position to fill because there's actually a lot of good defensive linemen. It's just very hard to find these offensive linemen who are super talented to match up with these guys. Because I mean, if you really think about it, what you're doing in the NFL is you're investing in one defensive lineman to take on two offensive linemen, and you got to be really talented to do that. And so that's actually the biggest jump is, you know, I remember Coach Waz and Coach Mahalchek, they would all say that like the biggest jump from college football to the NFL is the defensive line. It just takes a huge jump of the talent. And you got guys who are 350 pounds like Vita Vea, and
Yeah.
they run a 4.8. It's like, dude, what? And he's on the same defensive line as, you know, freaking, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
any of the defensive linemen on the Bucks.
Well, that's why
Some other good guys
of the last 7 years I've been back doing Oregon State football. Who was the big giant defensive lineman you guys had in the middle that God, what was his name? He was who's that?
Elu?
No, he was the guy that came from the JC
Elu
that he never really panned out because he never could stand. Right, yeah, Whitley. He was the one guy I
Jordan
always
Whitley?
thought if
Yeah.
he could just get in shape and stay on the field, he could have made a huge difference because he was
Yeah.
athletic. And I mean, he
Super
was a former
strong,
running
super
back. I
fast.
just felt like, man, he was a difference maker, but he never could stay on the field. So
It's funny at defensive line, those are usually the guys that do really good is the former running backs, former tight ends like Warren Sapp, JJ Watt. It's these skill
yeah.
guy who get big all of a sudden and do really
Then the
well.
second topic we'll get into is just the season itself. Where'd you think it went wrong, or did it? Well, I mean, was this team never much more than a 5-7 team to begin with, or did you feel like where did it go wrong?
Honestly, I think it was just one of those seasons where you just didn't have enough depth going around. Um, I think they had a fairly good team going in. I think the main problem point was the quarterback. I mean, I think that was the bottleneck for the whole season. Other than the first, what, 3, 4, other than the first four games or so, that was where, it seemed like everything was good, but it was kind of like a false safety net. Um, so I think that quarterback was kind of that quarterback position was the problem the whole time of not really having that solidified and
Yeah.
not having a guy to go with. Um, and then just many games you would just go into it didn't seem like there was much of a game plan. It was kind of like we were still it felt like we were at scrimmages still kind of figuring out who's our guy. And it felt like that
Yeah.
was kind of the state we were in the whole season. I think that mixed with some injuries at key positions that we weren't very deep at. That I think that was kind of the difference of the season. And then you just lose all
So I
momentum at
mean,
that point, in
this
my
is
opinion.
totally Monday morning quarterbacking because I mean that's kind of what you do when you're not playing the game. You can second guess things, but I two things I felt like one was quarterback. I mean, I think we're always going to look back and wonder should Gulbranson been the starter from the beginning. I know, Ryan Gunderson.
Yeah,
He's the coach, and he sees these guys a lot more than I do. But I just felt like in camp, I didn't see it. I didn't see Giovanni being that much better than everybody else, and I just felt like Ben has the experience, and he kind of showed it late in the season that he could make some things happen through the air. But I just felt like maybe they were just so married to want to, have a mobile quarterback that, yeah,
that's what I think it was.
and
That's
I
what I
mean, in
think
the
it
end,
was.
I just the guy they should have had was the guy that they ended up with, and um, I don't know.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think it was, is this married to this idea of like, oh, this is kind of what everyone's doing. We need a mobile quarterback. We need this. We need that. And I think at what I saw going into the season is like, hey, we lost a lot of guys last year, a whole new coaching staff, whole new team. It's kind of a coin flip on either this is going to be a rebuild year or this is going to be a really good year. Honestly, in my opinion, if this was like a 8 and a 10-2 type of season, I would have been shocked personally. because there was just a lot of obstacles, a lot of things to fight through for this team. And so I think we probably can all say at this point Ben Gulbranson would have been the guy to go with at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And who knows what November could have looked like, because that's when you're playing your best football as a team. But
No, we'll never know. But
we'll never know.
that's one thing. The other one, I just felt like, and again, this Monday morning quarterbacking, but was Jermaine Terry. He didn't catch a pass until game 5. Well, look what happened once he started catching passes. He became kind of a monster out there. He was pretty productive. I think he ended up with 24 catches in the last 7 games. And I mean, how you couldn't locate him from game 1 is just beyond me.
And I'll be honest, I think what JT did towards the end of this season, I think he made a name for himself, honestly, to be able to go either to the next level or like give himself some leverage here. And
no, he's done. He's done. This is it.
Oh, okay, he's done. Okay, that's what I thought. But I think he made a name for himself, and I think Riley Sharp kind of showed like, hey, there's some room for tight ends in the NFL to get their shot at making a team coming from Oregon State. You know, you don't got to be necessarily Luke Musgrave or Tegan Pretoriano, but if you're an athlete and you go out there, show you can play tight end, you know what you're doing, and I know JT can and will.
I mean, that play he made, the touchdown he made against Washington State was exactly the sort of play I thought he was brought. Was why he was brought from Cal. One of the reasons, where he could get downfield, he like not every tight end can do, and get and make a play on. He won a 50-50 ball running in stride. Those are the kind of plays that I felt like he was brought to Oregon State to do, and we didn't really see much of that till the second half of the season.
Yeah. Well, I think you're getting kind of at the heart of, I think, is like the secondary thing of what kind of went wrong with this season is, you know, Oregon State tried to get away from their identity offensively of being like this pro style offense, using your tight ends, using play action pass, and tried to, I don't know, morph into this run and shoot type of offense. I don't really know what to call it. I wouldn't say it's run and shoot, but you know, we relied super heavily on our run game, which is awesome. But I just feel like that dynamic of that play action pass, that naked boot, all those kind of things that made us a good offense the past few years, kind of ran away from it for some reason. I don't know if they didn't think we had the talent or the ability to do it, or they just wanted to go with a different direction. I don't know, but it kind of feels like we try to run away from that, especially in the middle of the season. We try to run to, you know, hey, we're just going to put a running quarterback in there and we're going to let him use his legs and try to go get a
defensively. It just felt like it was an uphill battle all season because the injuries up front on defense to start the season were going to make it a challenge. They were just the depth was just challenged right from the get-go when they had 3 or 4 guys out for the year up front. I mean, it's not like they had.
Hey, I'm a defensive guy. I'm gonna just blame this all on the offense.
I mean,
that's my opinion.
You know, yeah, it just stripped them of all the depth they had up front on defense, and so it was always going to be an uphill battle. And you know, and then in general, the injuries in the secondary too hurt some stuff. But I'm just wondering, do you think they're okay with the defense they're running, or do you think it needs a makeover, or you think they just need some dudes to come back, or?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell with all the injuries, like you're kind of saying, but at the same time, I kind of feel the defense was in the same scenario as the offense was. Like game plan wise, it kind of felt like our defense was basically saying like, hey, our 11 are better than your 11, so we're gonna just play straight up. We're just gonna play cover 2. We're not going to do anything up front. We're going to play square, and you're going to know what we're going to come out like, almost like a Utah. Like that's what Utah does is they rush 4 defensive linemen and they play cover 2. Like they don't do much else other than that. They're
Yeah.
basically saying our 11 is better than your 11. And I feel like that's what I feel like that was the kind of the goal or the feeling of this defense this past year. And I just don't think they had the guys necessarily to be able to do that. Just because they're so young. Like we said, even the linebacker Melvin, who was starting, this was
Right.
his first season starting. Both the inside linebackers, this was their first season starting. So even the guys who were technically vets and older, they were still fresh. You only had one. You had two returning
On
one or
defense.
two returning
Well, yeah,
starters from last season.
Jaden
Is
Robinson,
that
I
what it was?
think, was the
Yeah,
only. Yeah, he was the only. JT was the
I think
only.
he was the only
JT
one.
and Josh Gray were the only two on offense, and Jaden was the only one on defense.
Yeah, and so it's one of those scenarios where it's like, man, you don't have the experience defensively yet. I feel like to just kind of sit there and go, hey, we're gonna go one on one, we're gonna go big on big, and just our 11 versus your 11. I think you got to have a little bit more of an attack mentality. Like we're gonna bring some different schemes and some blitzes, and we're twisting and we're doing all those kind of things. They started to get back to that towards the end of the year, but I even think this past game versus Boise State, it wasn't very promising. We were just playing such soft coverage. There was just too much. Like I don't know much about defensive back, but I do know when I was in the defensive team meetings with Coach Braz, the defense coordinator, he was like, "Hey, we're challenging dudes at the line of scrimmage. We're playing press coverage. We're playing tight. We're not going to give them any room to breathe. We're going to tell them where they could throw the ball."
Yeah.
And it just didn't look like that was the defense we were playing this whole season.
I was going to ask, where do you think OSU needs the most help in the transfer portal? But I mean, I think it's got to start at the quarterback position. And I'm not saying they need to go to the transfer portal, but I think the first thing, this is what I think, is the first conversation you need to have is with Ben. Ben, do you want to come back next year? Do you want to be our quarterback? We're going to give you a shot to be our quarterback if you want to come back. And then build an offense around what he does best. Because he will be a 6th year. I mean, he's got a lot of experience, and that's kind of important, I think. If it and I know that's going to be unpopular. There's a lot of people that think that Ben sucks and he's too immobile. He blah blah blah. I think he's pretty good. I mean, he's got some issues, but
I would be curious to see.
That would be the first place I'd have to start is with Ben. Do you want to come back, or do you want to go on to medical school?
Yeah, I would be curious to see what a Ben Gulbranson looks like, knowing he's the starter going into the season, right? Because he's never been in a situation like that. He's always been in the situation of either like, hey, I'm the backup, or I'm the third string, or all these kind of different situations, rather than like, hey, I'm the guy going forward. Like you could call it a quarterback battle or whatever you want to call it, but there's certain situations where you just know the guy is the guy. Like when DJ came, we all knew he was the guy, right? Everyone did. So I'd be curious to see Ben in that situation, but I'd also be questioning if he's not like, hey, thanks for the ride. I'm gonna go to medical school. So I'm not sure. I think that is definitely the first place to focus. I think the second place to focus is up front, offensive line and defensive line. Go after it hard, because you're going to have Samisi is done. I'm pretty sure Joshua Gray is definitely done. He's going to the next level. So you got to revamp O-line, D-line, and let that be the strength of your team. And I think you could build around that. I think they have the skill players, honestly, necessary to build around that. Obviously, you could add a piece or two here or there, but man, you have a solid front.
Yeah, I was pulling up the roster here, and I meant to have this loaded already because I think on the defensive line they're going to have some guys back that we didn't even see this year. Several guys. Takari Hickel will be one of them. I mean, he certainly would have made a difference.
That'd be a big addition.
Nick Norris, who we never saw. He was a transfer from Northern Colorado. He was a senior, and I think they were counting on him pretty heavily. Who there was? Kelsey Howard. I don't know. He's got an ACL. I don't know what shape he'll be in. There.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I think it's like, hey, either you're trusting like, hey, the guys we got, we're gonna develop them, get them bigger, faster, stronger, or we're gonna add a piece or two here. We're gonna add an edge rusher. I think that's what we're kind of missing this past season is some consistent edge rushing ability. And then I also think, getting some guys up front who can kind of handle these double teams because I did see against Boise State.
Yeah.
There's quite a few times we're getting knocked off the line of scrimmage. You just gotta, if you want a solid team, you gotta.
Yeah, I was also a little bothered this year that Skylar Thomas was the team's leading tackler. I don't recall. That's been a while since the safety's been the team's leading tackler. Its defense is always kind of.
Jalen Moore.
Yeah, which year?
Last time I believe. I believe it was 2018. He would go around bragging like, "Oh, I got 144 tackles" or some crazy number. It's like, dude, it's not good.
No, I mean this defense is kind of built to funnel the ball to the inside linebackers, and I mean they weren't even. I'm not even sure that they were one of the top two, but anyway, you got to get back to where the inside linebackers are making the majority of the plays. So. That's nothing against Skylar. I mean, he's a good.
Yeah, no, you look back at when Oregon State was really good defensively, we had some really great inside linebackers, like Avery Roberts, Omar Spates, Easton Mascarenas, even Kyrie Fisher. Like we had some good inside linebackers. I think the main thing you have to do defensively is you got to ask, like, who do we want to be? Do we want to be a defense that moves a lot up front? Do we want fast guys up front who can move a lot, or do we want big guys who can take on double teams and take on, just gap control? Because it kind of sounds like they were stuck in nowhere's land of like, hey, we want defensive linemen who are huge and just can't be moved. But then also we want you to be able to move and zip and zap. It's like, okay, you got to have one or the other, unless you're in the
So
NFL,
what is this? What is this off season? What does it look like? Is December time to kind of rest and reflect and hit it hard in January, or how do you? I mean, I kind of look at it like maybe like say 2018 or 2019 off season that you would have went through, where there's no bowl.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. This next month is going to be like there's going to be some optional lists. There's going to be some time for guys to kind of regroup, recover, get focused on, getting ready for school and whatnot. And then once January, I believe it's like 4th or so, it's usually like the first week in January. Once that hits, like we're back and running. Winter workouts, like we're hitting the ground running. And it's time to get in shape bigger. And in the winter, we usually we don't even focus on conditioning. We focus purely on speed, strength, and getting bigger. And then once you get to the summer, that's where you're doing your summer conditioning. You're getting back in shape. You're running your 100-yard sprints. You're running your gassers and all the different horrible conditioning you do. But coming up, winter, it's like winter bulk. The kids are calling it the winter arc. You know what I mean? You got these goals. You want to hit in summer. You gotta do your winter arc and start working in the winter so that when you get to the summer, you're boom, you got your good summer goals. So your summer bod goals. So I just taught you and all the older viewers who watch Beaver Banter. That's kind of that's the slow.
Does this team need to get bigger?
Right, it's called the winter arc. Yeah, I mean that is always priority number one. I mean that was my biggest downfall, right? Is I wasn't big enough, and my coaches made sure I knew that and made sure I was eating properly. But that's always the name of game of football. Get bigger.
Stay away from McDonald's and eat the right.
Some guys can't. Some guys, yes, stay away from it. Some
Yeah,
guys are already too big. It's like, all right, you're big enough. Other guys, it's like, hey,
yeah.
go have another
Well, last
breakfast.
question I got for you is I got a Heisman
Oh,
vote, and it's down to, I mean, it's no secret, it's down to Ashton Jenney or Travis Hunter. I mean, I anyone else, it's that seems like a
yeah,
reach. Who should I pick of those two?
yeah. I would hope you pick Ashton Genty so it makes us feel a little better about that loss. Be like, we lost to a Heisman winner. You know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna do? Um, I'm picking Ashton Genty. That's who I would pick if I were you. Um, I just think Boise
Yeah,
State
but
isn't who they are without him.
Is Colorado
Period. I
what they
mean,
are
and
without Travis Hunter?
I,
That dude was on. I mean, I've never seen a guy play as much. No.
I mean, yeah, they're not in the college football playoffs. They're
Yeah.
in the same
Well,
boat they would have
okay.
been without him. Well, I tell you what, I am not big on like saying dudes are amazing. I always hated that. Like, I don't know, I was kind of a hater in football. I was like, he's not that good. He's not that good. Remember week 2 or whatever it was when I came on this podcast, I was like, that dude Ashton Genty is freaking good.
Yeah.
Like he's good. I don't say that about a lot of people. So um, he's a beast, man. I mean, he's a tough task to handle. I don't think
I mean, it's
I
going to be
think he's a
close.
Heisman winner. I hope he is.
I need to look a
He's
little
a
bit
hell
more
of a
and see
player.
what because I know what Genty's done kind of. I don't know everything about Travis Hunter, so I got to start looking into him. But I mean, picture yourself. What if you played on the offensive and defensive line the whole game? I mean, can you imagine doing that for 12 games?
Yeah. I mean, come on, give me a
Oh,
break,
that's
man. I
true. You
played
did. Well,
fullback. I played defensive
yeah,
line. What
that's
else
true.
do you
Well,
want from me, man? You want me to go out there and play
I was
kicker
watching.
too?
I
I
was
was
watching.
basically Travis Hunter
Who's
before he was even
the
a thing.
Seahawk that returned the pick six for 90 some yards today? Defensive lineman. I was thinking about you watching him run. I was thinking,
Yeah.
could Isaac
Leonard
Hodgins have
Williams?
finished off this run 95 yards?
No, definitely not. I'm quick, man. I'm not fast though. I'm definitely getting hawked by somebody. Probably the quarterback or the center or
This
something. I'll
dude's like
probably get hawked by the
320
center.
though. I mean, it was uh,
Yeah. Leonard Williams. That's what I'm
yeah.
telling you. NFL defensive linemen are different, man. They're different. I tell you, I've worked out. I went to Exos when I went to Exos one time. I worked out with Javon Kinlaw. This dude was. I mean, it looked like I looked like a child. Obviously I was strong, so I lifted more than him. But I mean, like I stood in front of him. His body was like literally just like towering over me. It was
When you
insane. I
started
was like,
working
dude, this
out
dude is a
for
monster.
the NFL
He's
draft with
huge.
guys, did it take you very long to realize that you're
Yeah, I mean,
a computer? What you no, you're selling? What are you selling? God dang, I'm blanking out what you're selling. You're selling copy machine equipment. That's what you're selling. Did you realize that's what you were, and not an NFL
yeah.
defensive lineman?
No, man, I kept it was kind of after the foot injuries, I had a lot stacked against me, my height, my size, all that kind of stuff. When you got these foot injuries and you can't turn the corner very well and you're short and you're a little chubby, it's like, got a lot going against you, but I kept the faith to the end. And you know what? I was
Yeah,
able to hang up the cleats going. You know what? I gave it my all. I gave it my all. I broke my foot beyond repair. I mean, there's nothing more I could have done. You know what I mean? That's kind of the place you want to. That's how you want to leave football. You want to leave saying, "Hey, I did everything I could. I don't even want to go to the CFL because
is that what?
my body hurts too much."
But there's a lot of guys that would have done
I mean,
that because they want to keep the
huh?
dream alive. It's
Right, but I had exhausted all my resources, man. My foot I was at the Giants rookie mini camp and I was the last day of practice, I was literally praying. I was like, God, just don't let my foot break. So I'm
yeah,
not looking for a job in a cast, because Man, my foot was hurting, and I was like, man,
is your foot in good shape
I
now?
exhausted all my resources. Nah, I mean it's a new normal. You know what I mean? It's a new normal. It's just I'm used
Yeah,
to it at this
yeah.
point. I'm
Well,
down a lot of weight, so that helps.
I hate to tell you this, but the older you get, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah,
Your
my
dad,
dad tells me that too. He had similar
but your dad
injuries.
played
He's like,
fullback,
"Take
which
it
was
easy,
like
take it
a
easy."
position of car crashes. And that's all he did was run into people.
Yeah, exactly. He likes to make the joke. He was
Yeah,
6'2" before he joined before he
yeah.
got
No,
into the
he's
NFL. Now he's
that's a tough
6 foot.
position, man. That's a man's position. Um, not that yours wasn't, but the fullback, that's a man's
Oh yeah.
position, man.
Defensive line's like a bunch of
Yeah, yeah,
little like bumper car crashes. You don't let
yeah.
anyone gain too much momentum to hit you too hard, you know.
Well,
That's what I
anything
like
else we
about it.
should touch on, or should we kiss the season goodbye?
Man, I think we kissed the season goodbye, but I don't have to tell the Beaver fans this, but if you're a Beaver fan listening, which you are a Beaver fan if you're listening to this podcast, you're not any other fan if you're listening to this podcast. Um, just do what you've been doing basically your whole lifetime as a Beaver fan. Just keep believing, keep supporting the Bees, and like I really do think this ship is going to make a good course correction under Coach Bray, and I definitely believe all the experience these young guys got. If we can keep them for next season from going to the transfer portal, I think they're going to bring a wealth of knowledge to
Yeah.
this next
All
few
right.
years of Beaver
Well,
football.
hey, Isaac, I appreciate you having on the podcast this year. You've been a big addition, and hopefully, I can twist your arm, and maybe we can do this again next year. We'll see how life goes. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, this was it. So we're going to wrap it up here, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. We'll be back in August. So for the first game is against those Cal Bears on August 30th. So anyway, we'll see you later. Yep.
Started off hot with a win. Go Beavs, baby. Let's go.